Scott Hambrick, scotthambrick.com. I'm getting ready to delete my Instagram account. They got rid of my friend Carl and some others, and they're going to get rid of me too eventually. And I don't need it; it's not worth screwing with. So I'm going to delete that. Go follow me at on Telegram, t.me/ScottStream. You can go follow there, and I do live streams there and post, and we've got an interesting chat going on. This is a live that I had no real intention of publishing, but it ended up being pretty interesting. We ended up talking about the nature of evil and what proper political action looks like, and what is my take, at least, on what Plato and Aristotle say about the good life in the face of a tyrannical government. So listen to that. My reading of Plato and Aristotle and Aquinas may differ from yours, and I don't know. I may be wrong, but that is my take that you'll be hearing here later. So tune in for that. Again, a little bit of a slow start. We talk about precious metals. We talk about crypto. We talk about how to purchase precious metals if that's something that you're interested in, you haven't done before. So listen there. And again, you can follow me at scotthambrick.com. Please do join the email list. I talk a little bit about the proposed zine. Right now, I'm not super enthusiastic about that. So just tune in for that as well. And drop in over there at on Telegram and say, hey, thanks so much for listening. And we'll pick this audio up kind of in progress. It's a little bit of a rough start, but it picks up in the last I don't know, 2/3 of this are at least they were interesting for me, and I hope they're interesting for you as well. Thanks.
I want to figure it out. I only see one person participating in this, and that's Trent. And that shouldn't be right. There's Brandon. Yes, Brandon. Yeah, I don't know.
How would you go about buying silver? What's your recommendation? What's your recommendation for buying silver?
Like how to do it?
Yes.
Well, you can either buy. I'm not the expert, but I have bought some. I know a little bit about it, or I know enough about it to be able to do what I need to do. So I'll share what I know. Somebody that's, Peter Schiff would correct me probably, but there are basically going to be two kinds of silver that you can buy. Well, kind of. You're going to be able to buy coins or bullion. Coins are going to be silver minted by various banks or by various governments, Canada, United States, China, Australia, whatever. And those are very generally recognized for their purity and their quality, because people will see an American minted silver coin and recognize it for what it is. And then you'll see bullion, which is minted by various silver, mints. And the bullion could be in bars. Sometimes they're coins. You can buy 1 ounce, 10 ounce, 100 ounce bars. You're typically, when you go to your silver retailer, you're going to pay the spot price for the metal. So in this case, it's $21.64 an ounce. Plus, you're going to pay a premium to the dealer for the privilege. The premiums are going to vary. You're going to pay a higher premium for a well-regarded American silver coin than you will pay for a minted bar, for example. Like I have seen 100 ounce, 99.99% pure silver bars that went for spot plus $1, and I have seen that recently. But you will often see, for these coins, you're going to see spot plus $4 or even higher sometimes. So you're going to pay that spot price no matter what, and then you're going to be able to haggle perhaps on the premium you're going to pay over the spot. There's 99 point, there's like high purity coin or bullion. There's sterling silver. There's what they call junk silver, which is 90% silver. There's nickel silver. So you're going to see different purities for silver, and they're going to adjust the price on those based on the silver content. So, if you buy an ounce of junk silver, there's only going to be 9/10 of an ounce of silver in there. So you're going to end up, you're not going to pay as much per ounce for that. Junk silver is typically going to be 1965 and earlier American dimes, quarters, half dollars, and silver dollars. And you're typically going to pay a multiple times face value for those coins. They're 90% silver, and you're going to pay, I don't know what it is today, you're probably going to pay something like 19 times face value for those. So you'll pay $1.90 for a 1965 or earlier dime. So that's how they price this stuff. And then, the dealer needs to get a premium. They need to get that. They need to get that premium over the spot price because, they're advertising. They have a safe. They have a security guard. They have knowledge there. They have other expenses involved in doing business and making those metals available to you, and that's how they get paid. So I don't begrudge them that. Hopefully you're in a state where you don't have to pay sales tax on that. And then gold is the same way. You're going to pay spot price plus a premium. You're going to pay a higher premium for an American Gold Eagle than you will a Canadian Maple Leaf. And you're going to pay a higher premium on both of those than probably a Krugerrand, which is not as much gold. It's not as pure as the Maple Leaf or the American Gold Eagle. There's a gold dealer here in town that I like very, very much. That won't help you any, but I sure have liked. I have never bought anything from these guys, but they're in Oklahoma City. It's called APMEX.com, APMEX.com, American Precious Metals Exchange. And that, it's in Oklahoma City. I know I'm here in Oklahoma and you think I'm just pimping them because they're Oklahoma City. No, they're huge. They're probably the biggest online seller of precious metals. And I haven't bought anything from them before, but I know people who have, and I've been watching the prices. That's where I go to get all my quotes. And they have, just as far as I can tell, they almost always have the best prices and have a wonderful reputation. Yeah. But I still don't know why silver is so darn cheap. Why it's still so darn cheap. Ryan says, what am I trying to figure out about these? I'm trying to figure out why the silver price and the gold price is so depressed, because everything else, from 2x4s to milk to lead and everything else we know, is going up. How in the hell, in the face of printing $9 trillion in the last 18 months or so, has silver only at $21? I don't get it. There's my wife. Now what, babe? So I'm trying to figure that out. I can't figure it out. I don't know what's going on. This is interesting. I don't see anybody else in the chat for this other than Brandon, but it says I have 20 participants here. It's very interesting. Very, very interesting. Here in our chat on Telegram, so there were some people talking today about money and the money printing going on and just general anxiety about all that. And people continue to say, that we need to be, looking at crypto and interested in crypto. And I don't know if you guys have followed me very long, you know that I am interested in it. But I don't understand why everybody thinks this is going to save us. When technology is the problem, and the metaphysics of our money is the problem, I don't think that crypto is going to help us. All cryptocurrencies are fiat currency. They aren't real money. I think that money is only gold, silver, platinum, copper, nickel, etc. So cryptos are fiat. And as such, they're going to have all of the problems that fiat currencies have. I know a bunch of you guys right now are yelling, "Oh, no. There's only so many million of this coin or that coin, and it can't be inflated." Well, you're wrong. Bitcoin is inflationary until all of the coins are issued. So it is an inflationary crypto, or an inflationary fiat currency right now, and it will be until we run out, until they so-called mint them all. And then the worst thing about cryptos, they're not all this way, but almost all of them are democratic, and that's probably the worst thing and the most evil thing about them. So you say that the rules that govern your crypto, and which one is the best because you've examined the purpose of the thing, and you understand all the technicals behind it, and you invest in it. Well, once over 50% of the people that are using that coin, of those nodes, decide to change the rules, they'll change the rules. In some ways, that's worse. That's worse than having a Federal Reserve Bank. The Federal Reserve Bank is a limited number of people, and there's at least some accountability because there are so few of those people involved in it. But with your crypto, it's democratic. It's got all of the problems of democracy with it. It's electronic. It's probably already compromised. All of them are probably already compromised. And it's not money. Come at me, bros. Convince me otherwise as I'm in here. Jason says crypto is, he says he likes silver because it's more difficult to manipulate than digital or fiat, and it isn't being hoarded by governments like gold. And another guy here says if they can tax you on gold and silver as a form of investment, they can inflate your crypto. Well, you can do anything they want to do. You got to understand that we've lost everything, and they can do anything they want. Today, about once a week, I check. Can you guys hear me? About once a week, I check YouTube comments, and I saw that a guy had said on the show that Carl and I did about Alexander Solzhenitsyn. He said that that we didn't understand the true import of the Gulag Archipelago, and that we had already been, quote unquote, educated, and so we missed all of the importance of the thing. I don't think so. We've already lost. No one is going to make a stand, including me. And we just have to find a way to live with this shit, guys and girls. They're going to tax us. They're going to wreck everything. Yeah, I disappeared there. Well, I'm back now. Yeah, I dropped. I don't know where I dropped off. I don't know where I dropped off, but here I am. I can see there's 20 participants, but I don't see chat participants here. So who knows? I don't know where that dropped off. But I think I was talking about the Solzhenitsyn book, and they were saying that these people, this commenter on Instagram or on YouTube was telling me that we missed how important the book is, and I don't think the book's as important as everyone says it is, because cautionary tales do nothing. Humankind is what it is, and we've already lost. Nobody's going to push back. This is not going to get better. So we just have to find a way to have a life, Yeah. There's been a lot of talk here in the chat about getting dumb phones, phones that don't unlocked phones, that are spyware free. A lot of talk in the chat about how long are these phone carriers going to carry 4G and so on. I don't know. We just need to get rid of these things. Eric wants to say something. Eric can now speak if he chooses.
Scott, yes. Can you hear me? I think you might be muted.
I can hear you. I can hear you.
It may be something on my end. I can't hear you.
I can hear you, Eric. I can.
I'll hop off and hop back on.
Okay. I just killed him there. Yeah. By the way, if you're having a hard time hearing me, you can take your finger or your mouse and click on my name there, and then there's a slider, and it'll say 100%. We can move that thing all the way to 200% or whatever, and turn my volume way, way up. And there you go. Eric's got it. Yeah. I'd be glad to. Yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to figure out, I want people to be thinking about, why is silver cheap? Nothing else is cheap. Why is silver lagging essentially every other asset class? Why is that? How could that possibly be? Why does an ounce of silver buy you less milk or bread or tobacco or whiskey today than it did at the beginning of the year? Why? How could that possibly be in the face of all the money that's been printed? Help me figure it out. Well, that's all I really wanted to comment on today. I'm less and less interested in messing with this stuff all the time. So, our good friend Carl got banned from Instagram. I'm getting ready to delete my Instagram profile. I'm going to keep it up there another day or two, and then I'm going to delete it. And you'll still be able to find me at scotthambrick.com and on my podcasts until those get deplatformed, and they will. I have not done the newsletter yet, and I don't know if I'm going to. I'm just increasingly less interested in communicating with people that aren't my family, frankly. It just the risk reward just doesn't seem to be there. So I don't know what I'm going to do about that. I've got the mimeograph machine sitting over there on a workbench. I have everything I need to do a newsletter, but Increasingly, it just doesn't seem worth the while. Yeah. Let's see here. I'll go into the chat and see if anybody has anything to say. And if they do, Jake asks, is there any major advantage to buying metal in person instead of online? I don't know. I don't know. I worry about buying it in person because, somebody could follow you home, whack you in the head or something like that. The prices online are a little bit better, but there's something good. It's very good to have a relationship with a dealer and someone to be able to ask questions and and learn from. When you buy it online and they ship it, it's all insured, so your losses are all backstopped. You're going to be fine. But I like to buy it in person. Yeah, I like to buy it in person, and it costs a little bit more, but I think it's probably worth it because I think the relationship is valuable. If you buy it in person and it's time to sell, I think you're going to do better when you sell as well. That was great, Judy's Crazy School. It was really great. The Judys are wonderful people, hospitable, incredibly intelligent, really nice folks. And it was a delight to just be with them. It's a delight to be on their farm. We stayed on the farm while we were there. That was really wonderful. I've read all of his books. I've watched most of his videos, and I will be honest that there isn't a lot of content in the grazing school that's not available in his books or in his videos. But being at the school, I was able to ask him questions. And he answered my specific questions. There's all of the time that anyone needed there for asking questions was available. Seeing how they do things, doing the pasture walk with him, seeing how he evaluates cull cattle, how he evaluates cull sheep, how he evaluates forage, that stuff was helpful. It was not the finest educational event I've ever been to, but I would gladly do it again, and I probably will do it again. It's fairly inexpensive, and just going and being at his farm and spending a few days there is worth the price. And then any information you get is worth more than that for sure. Kirk says, I regularly go to sci-fi conventions with mostly liberty-minded people. Liberty-minded people are the problem, right, Kirk? Have you figured that out yet? I would be happy to run a booth to advertise OGB and sell the zine if you decide to do it. Why, thank you. Thank you. That's very kind. Yeah, it's yeah, it's not a matter of advertising. It's just a matter of, is it worthwhile to do this? Can't keep my pipe lit. Is it worthwhile to do this? I don't know. Owen and Matt say they were really looking forward to the zine. I don't know that the zine's dead. I'm not going to say it's dead, but I'm not on fire to do it right now. Ryan says, if you pay cash in person, it can't be tracked. I don't believe that for a second, but it would be harder to track for sure. It would certainly be harder to track. Oh, well. Interesting. I think I asked if I could write a column trashing boomers and multiculturalism. Yeah, probably. I certainly need to do that, for the blog, I guess, no matter what. I went to the barber shop this morning, and there were two grossly obese women there with two little boys. Little boys were getting their hair cut. I couldn't tell if the little boys were Indians, like Native Americans, or if they were mestizo people. I couldn't tell, but there were certainly no men there with them. They got done and they left, and they were just an absolute mess. The kids wouldn't sit still. They wouldn't mind. It was difficult for the nice barbers to give them a haircut, and they left, and I was glad to see them leave with their type 2 diabetic handlers. And then I got in the chair. Just as soon as I got in the chair, 3 boomers came in. And I know that I'm 40. I'll be 47 here in less than 2 weeks. And I know a lot of Generation Z people can't tell the difference between boomers and maybe Generation X. No, I promise you, I'm not a boomer. These people were born, 65 and prior. They were in their 60s. And I wanted to be generous and talk to them, listen to them, have a barbershop conversation with those people. But I couldn't do it. I couldn't bring myself to do it, I should say. And I was sitting there silent in the barber chair thinking about that. Now, yesterday I spoke with Charity's grandfather, Haskell, for several hours. He's in his mid to late 80s, has done a lot of things, just a fine gentleman, and had a wonderful conversation. He and I share a lot of views, and our outlooks are very similar on almost all things. And I want to treasure older people, and I want to respect them. And I was sitting in that barber chair feeling bad about the fact that I didn't want to talk to those boomers, that I didn't want to strike up that conversation with them. And I realized, well, the reason I don't respect them as a class is they typically haven't done respectable things, and I don't. It's very unlikely we would have had a respectable conversation as well. We cannot recover from the boomers, guys. Institutional and cultural knowledge flow was broken by them. They are the elders now, and they do not have they don't have the stories to tell. They don't have the wisdom to share, the outlook, the culture, the society, the art, the folk ways. They don't have those things to transmit to younger people. The thread has been broken, and the boomers broke it, or maybe the boomers' parents broke it, but it in that generation is broken. The kinds of conversations that I can have with my grandfather-in-law, who is not a boomer, is entirely different than the kinds of conversations I can have with my father-in-law, and that's not good. Kyle wants to speak. You're live. You can speak, Kyle. all you have to do is unmute, and you can do it, brother. Hey, Travis. Travis recommended the Farmstead Meatsmith podcast to me, and then I recommended it to Carl, and we've just been gobbling it up. It's just a wonderful thing. Even if you don't think that you're interested in butchering animals, it's just a wonderful podcast. Farmstead Meatsmith. Yeah, Kyle, did you have something you want to say, brother? Okay.
No, hey. Sorry, I'm driving and I accidentally hit a button. Sorry about that.
There you are. Hello, sir. What can I help you with?
Oh, no, sorry. I was driving and I accidentally hit a button. So I was listening and fumbling around with my phone and hit the wrong button.
Oh, no problem. No problem. Yeah, so the boomers are making me sad in a lot of ways. Travis, do you have a podcast? Seemed to me like you did, but I can't recall. No, you don't? Okay. And Travis is a serious homesteader and doing the real things. Hey, Eric, you are muted, but you can unmute and speak.
Hey, Scott, I had a question more. Did Plato and Aristotle give any specific advice as to the good life under tyranny, and attempting to find that when you're quote unquote, I guess I'll use the word oppressed.
Yeah. Oh, nothing specific that I'm aware of. Nothing like Aristotle doesn't say. Now, listen, if you have to wear a mask all the time, here's how to live the good life. I mean, there's nothing that specific in there, but I think that, almost all of Plato is ultimately about that. If you go read some of the history, you'll find that Athens at the time of Socrates, in the time depicted in the dialogues, was a time when they were at war with the Spartans and ultimately lost to the Spartans. And then later, when Athens was run by the 30 tyrants for a short time, and then all the tyrants were overthrown, and it was a nasty time in Athens, and they ultimately killed Socrates, and we get to read about it in those dialogues. So those dialogues are all a time of extreme oppression, violence, uncertainty, and they the interlocutors in those dialogues, I think, are doing their best to live a good life. Socrates tells us that the unexamined life isn't worth living. Well, he says the examined life is life worth living for a man, and they try to do that. And you can actually see, when you read the Symposium, you can read about a party and the kind of conversation that they had and the kind of party that they would have, and you can see and you can see what the good life was. At the beginning of the Republic, they're at oh my gosh, they're at Cephalus's house. He's an older guy, and it's like carnival, kind of a carnival time, a festival time, and they're just trying to decide whether they want to go to some horse races or if they want to stick around and talk. And Cephalus decides to go to the horse race, I think, and then the rest of the guys hang around and talk. And the Republic comes out of that. Most of his story is about that, and then most of the dialogues are about that. All of Plato is essentially about that, in my opinion. And then Aristotle tells us in Nicomachean Ethics how to act, how to live properly. And I don't think that in how to, living a proper life with proper action to the proper extent at the proper time for him is a good life. And And I think he would say that that doesn't change under a bad government. And if you read if you read in politics, he talks about the five oligarchy, temarchy, monarchy, tyranny, democracy, right? The five types and the life cycles of governments and how they cycle through that. He doesn't say that proper action would change for anyone during that time, during any of those different kinds of government. So, proper action and proper life isn't dependent on circumstance, right? There's a right way to live regardless of circumstance. It isn't relativist. It isn't subjective. And I think both of those guys, Plato and Aristotle, would say that. I think they would say that, Aristotle would say that the proper life requires proper action and the proper extent, so on. Ethical behavior is according, like he lays out in the Nicomachean Ethics. And he would say that I think that the government that you lived in would only be an accident at that time that might lead to oppression, but it wouldn't change how you live, right? So you might have to drink the hemlock, but you still act properly. That might mean that the government makes you drink the hemlock, but you always act properly. And the way that one acts doesn't change depending on who's in power. Protagoras in Socrates, in Plato's dialogue, Socrates argues with Protagoras in there. I believe it's Protagoras. It's either that one or Gorgias. I believe it's Protagoras. That it is better to be harmed than to harm. Right? He makes an excellent argument. I'm not going to recount it here. One, because I don't have it in my mind well enough right this moment to tell you about it. And two, it's a 3-hour conversation or 10-hour conversation. He makes the argument that it's better to be harmed than to harm. And I have come to believe that. And this is and he makes a better argument than Jesus does. Jesus commands us, and that ain't wrong, but he doesn't make arguments for it. Socrates makes arguments for it. So if you're in an oppressive situation, Socrates tells us, well, listen, it's better that you're being harmed than you're doing the harming, right? And you have to live properly. If you don't live properly, you don't have a shot at the good life. And then it could possibly be that being killed by the hemlock is part of the good life. And then when you go read Aquinas sort of ties it all up in a bow and puts a bow on it for us, where he tells us that the good life is one where we obtain the beatific vision, right? Like we can see the truth and the truth and the wisdom and the beauty and the goodness of the Creator, and that proper action brings us closer and closer and closer to the beatific vision. Well, none of those things are dependent on a particular government system. I think all this is coherent. I may not be making it coherent, but I think these guys are coherent, and I think they make good arguments. So many people now look to the Stoics because they want to know how to specifically bear up under a certain oppression, to deal with grief or strife or whatever. They want to be specifically told how to cope with that. And it's too late at that point. I mean, I think this is the problem. One of the many, many problems with the Stoics is it's too late at that point. Right? We need to know what proper action is before the strife comes, right? We need to know, if you act like Socrates, if you act like the great-souled, magnanimous man of Aristotle, or Aquinas's holy person who obtains beatific vision, then you don't have to worry about what the government's doing. It's not relevant. It's not relevant whatsoever. So, if we act properly, then the government stuff isn't relevant. And I'll tell you, and I'm probably blowing my own horn here a little bit, it's less and less relevant to me every day. So there's a lot of talking from me. Yeah, come back at me there. What else?
Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense. I guess, and perhaps it is too late to attempt to, quote unquote, fight. I feel like in a lot of, on the right or conservative circles, there's, lots of talk about using the Second Amendment to protect yourself from the government. A lot of it feels LARPy. As much as I, appreciate the idea of it, what does that point look like where you would fight back? Is it at that community level? Is if you are at the point of needing to rebel with violence and firearms against tyrannical government, have you already lost?
I think we found the Fed, guys. No, listen. I don't. I spoke a little bit earlier about some guy that was pushing back at us, at Carl and I, for our reading of Solzhenitsyn's Gulag Archipelago. And there's a little chunk, a little couple pages in the first chapter of that where he says, the time to do something about it is when the first few people are arrested, is to pick up pots and pans and shovels and and attack the secret police. He says, that's the time when to do it. And but the thing is, you never know when that time is. You never know when that time is, and I don't think, I'm not a warrior. I'm a shopkeeper at best. Living a warlike life is not, the good life for me. I can't. I don't. I'm a peasant. I'm not. It's not my job or my lot in life or my purpose or my telos to ensure some sort of a particular kind of government for my fellow man or even for myself. The Americans, I was thinking about this morning, the United States is born of revolution, and most governments are not. Very few are. In fact, I can't really think of any except for the various French republics that have been born up and then have failed since 1789. It typically doesn't work that way, and we're finding out this one won't work either. They're typically, governments are formed when people who are already powerful clash and wrest of power away from one government and put it under another. We are, unfortunately, this is not a particularly American thought, and people won't like this, but we are basically peasants, and it is not our job it's not our lot in life. It is not our telos to be trying to overthrow a government and install a new one. And in fact, if we had thought that our job was to make sure the land was more fertile and that we had good kids and we had lots of them, we wouldn't be in this fucking position in the first place. The idea that if we have guns, we're going to end up with good governance is absurd. The way you have good governance is create virtue among the people and propagate that at every turn. And we haven't done that. So, it's going to be rough sailing for a little while. Whatever. There's nothing we can do about it. I don't even want to do anything about it. Benjamin Ryan says, government action is irrelevant like the weather, just something to account for and act accordingly. I think that's right. I think that's right. I'm getting text messages here. Let's see if it's the kids. Always got to check. Always got to check and make sure it's not the kids. Make sure nobody's having car troubles or needs their father, and everybody's fine. Yeah, I'd like to talk some more about that. Socrates is always trying to tell the truth. He's always trying to show people what the good life is. He's always trying to find the truth. He uses dialectic and questions constantly to try to obtain the truth. For him, that is the best thing to do. And he was a soldier too, by the way. You can read in the Symposium, high praise of his military service. But that was proper action for him. And I think that's right. A government that's born of revolution is going to see government as an instrument of force almost entirely. And ours has been that way from jump. Washington hadn't been in office but a minute when he rolled out the military and squashed a bunch of farmers who didn't want to pay tax on whiskey. He immediately did the very thing that we had fled from. This government has been oppressive and miserable from jump. I'm sorry, it has. The only president that we had, Jefferson and Jackson worked at every turn to undo that. But anyway, they failed, and it's not going to be good because it never really was. Yeah. Travis, I've seen your question there. We'll get to that here in a little bit and see if anybody else has anything to say about what I just said. Yeah, it is. Nobody wants to believe this, and in fact, I don't want to believe it. But Socrates has convinced me, and Jesus has convinced me too, that it is better to be harmed than to harm. Aquinas tells us in Book 1, Pars Prima, in Book 1 of Summa Theologica, that, he makes the proof for God that so many of you heard of, the prime mover argument, right? He makes this prime mover argument. And then he describes what kinds of actions the prime mover could possibly take. It's an intellective will. It wills things to happen through its intellect. And it had perceived of all things. And it had intellect, and it had intellected. It had thought of and designed and thought of all these things in order that they could come about. And that all things were a product of this mover. They have to be. And you can go read his proof. If you read his proof, if you're an atheist and you go read his proof and you don't come out at the end of that first 25 or so questions in Pars Prima, if you don't come out a deist, you are self-deceptive. So he says that all things were created by God, and then he makes a little jump. He makes a little jump there, and it's not actually Aquinas makes no jumps. He fills in all the gaps, but I'm going to make a jump where he says, well, all things were created by God. So what about this evil thing? Well, he says, well, QED, all things being created by God, evil being bad, it wasn't created by God. The only thing that it could possibly be then evil. The only thing evil could possibly be would be a privation of the good. Evil isn't an active thing of its own. It's the absence of the good, right? Well, this has huge consequences, and I've spent a lot of time thinking about this, that if evil is the privation of the good, and I believe it is, I can't find any other way it could be an active force. You end up being a Manichaeist if you think that evil is an active force. It ends up being a sort of an anti-deity for you. You end up almost worshiping evil as a default by reacting to it. If you hold evil in your mind as an active force, your reaction to it almost ends up being a kind of a worship. It's very interesting, but it's a Manichaean problem. You can read Augustine talk about this. But if evil is a privation of the good and evil is done to you, how do you actually fight that? The evil is not an active thing. It doesn't have a metaphysical being in it like good does. So, if that's the case, if evil is a privation of the good, you can't actually fight it. All you can do is to propagate good. That's the only thing you can do. You can only propagate good. You cannot fight evil. When Jesus said, resist not evil, I was very confused about that for about 46 or 47 years. I'm still somewhat confused about it, but I was really confused about it originally. Well, now I understand it's because you can't resist it, because it actually doesn't exist. Evil is the privation of the good. We, being people, humans, we see things and we want to give it a form. We want to understand it as a thing. There's a certain metaphysical approach to things that we have to make because of the way our brains work. So when we see something that is evil, we say that is a thing. It is not. It is the absence of the good. It is the dark showing through. If that is the case, you cannot fight it actively. The only thing you can do is create more good to fill in the holes. You want to make sure there are no voids in the good. You want to make sure that the evil doesn't exist because the good is all encompassing. Yeah. Dieck says, what would the best system be? Monarchy. If you build your family and community, monarchy will actually come out of it eventually. If family and community is strong enough, monarchy will eventually come out of it. Owen says, why no one in the church talks about the nature of God's justice is beyond me, because they don't want people to hear about it. They don't know. Most people don't think about it. And most of the proddies can't really say anything about it. They have nothing to say about it. Jake, in the Apology, Socrates says, a man who really fights for justice must lead a private, not public life if he's to survive for even a short time. Yes. Yes. Austin says, Calvinists worship sin. I said it. Fight me. That's right. It's the Manichaean problem. They put sin and evil, well, sin being a symptom of evil, they put evil on an almost equal footing with God. They don't do it on purpose, but that's the outcome from their busted metaphysics. They can't help it. Jason says, you have to be in the upper end of the bell curve of intelligence to even be interested in understanding Socrates. Yes. You got to be 110 or higher to even be interested in understanding it. He says, my church growing up was your average evangelical, mid-American contemporary style church. Not a lot of intellect in there. No. Creating good equals OGB. Well, that's very kind of you, John. John says that creating OGB was good. I think so. Sometimes I wonder. Yeah, so Travis says, yeah, this is why we build virtue, family, and culture. Yeah, Jake says, since I started reading Plato, all I've thought is that if we told people to read this as much as we told people to read the Bible, we may not be in so much trouble. Yeah, there's a reason why the Catholic Church did not want the Bible translated into the vulgar languages. There's a reason for that. I've talked myself into some cotton mouth there. Yeah. I don't remember who asked that question. Oh, it was Eric. Anyway, so there's I don't know. 18 minutes on Hambrick and pacifism and so on. So it's not that pacifism is morally right, although it may be. It's that pacifism it's not that pacifism is necessarily morally right, though it may be. The problem is that aggression to fight evil doesn't work, because metaphysically it's the wrong answer. Evil is an absence of the good. It is not an active force. Well, full stop. So you can't find it. It doesn't have a headquarters. Sorry. It doesn't have a headquarters. I do believe that there are people who are Satan worshipers. Some of them are probably in our government. They don't even know they're Satan worshipers. But because they do that, just because they do that doesn't mean that there actually is that active malevolent force that must be fought. They are just wrong about their spiritual system, about how the world works, about the nature of good, about the nature of evil. They're just wrong. And insofar as they go towards that thing which is not true, right? Because there's a reason why we talk about the good, the beautiful, and the true. So insofar as they go away from that which is good, go away from that which is beautiful, go away from that which is true, they become evil. So the only thing we can do is make overwhelming beauty, act in an overwhelmingly good way, and only deal with the truth. McGinty's throwing some Tolkien out there. I don't know about Tolkien's mythology there. He's talking about, McGinty talks about Melkor and Iluvatar. I don't know these characters, but yeah. So those are the problems. So I think all this matters. Like you say, how do you live the good life if you're in an oppressive government situation? Well, you live the good life by doing good things, pursuing the good, the beautiful, and the true. And that might mean you drink the hemlock, but that's your job, man. That's your job. Yep. What else, everyone? Let's see here. Back. I don't know, 20 minutes ago. About 20 minutes ago or so, Travis asked, what was appealing to me about the Farmstead Meatsmith podcast? He just has the right worldview. He talks about, for example, how to kill these various animals for butcher and how to do it in the best possible way. And best for him doesn't mean cheapest. It doesn't mean fastest. It means best, period. And in order for him to figure out how to best dispatch these animals, he looks at what that animal is, like metaphysically, like what is it? Like what is the essence of that animal? What is its form? What is its essence? What is, what is its purpose? Which is its final cause? What are all of these things? And for example, he talks about how the pig is an omnivore and is very, very intelligent and is intellective. And so he wants to, when he kills a pig for butcher, he wants to make sure that he puts that pig's brain to rest first. And I think he's right about that. If he's going to butcher a duck or a goose, waterfowl, he makes sure that they can't flap their wings. He says, and I believe this is true, that the waterfowl, they respond to danger by flapping their wings first. and then the panic comes. And he has found that keeping them from flapping their wings keeps them from panicking. So if he can restrain their wings and then dispatch them, that's the best possible way for one of them to go. He wants to make sure that goats and sheep aren't able to run or flail their legs. Because when they're running or flailing their legs or in this flee posture, they experience panic, and it's stressful to them. And so he looks at the animal, how the animal behaves, wants to understand the animal to do good and proper butchery. Everything that he does is extraordinarily thoughtful, and he's basically Aristotelian. Austin says, any resources on good selective breeding methods? I'm having a hard time figuring out the formula on the healthiest long-term approach to the breeding process. Owen says, clear skin, straight teeth, decent height, and hopefully from a wealthy family. Not wealth. Wealth is now a proxy for corruption. Yeah. Wealth is now a proxy for corruption. Yep. I don't know of any resources on good selective breeding methods. It depends on what you're breeding for. I just spent all that time at the Greg Judy Grazing School, and he breeds for mostly handling characteristics. For handling characteristics, is it a flighty animal? Is it an aggressive animal? So on. He wants to make sure that his animals are easy to handle. Most animals that you buy now are going to be pretty good at putting on weight economically, mostly. So the differences are going to be, are you breeding them for pest resistance? Are you breeding them for handling characteristics? Whatever. So I don't know. But I know he ruthlessly culls his animals, though. Ruthless. He says you have to be the predator on your farm. Well, it's 5:08, and I'm going to see if this pipe if I can burn any more of this out, or if we're down into the dottle. And if we can't, then that's the end of this one. Your concern is inbreeding weird stuff. Well, he does a lot of line breeding. There's almost any book from some ag school is going to tell you about line breeding and inbreeding and so on. And you won't have any problem. Yeah, almost any book about selective breeding from some ag school is going to help you with that. Try to find one from before 1950. Cameron says, I heard using donkeys to protect a herd is better than dogs. Greg Judy told many stories about using donkeys to protect sheep, donkeys and llamas to protect sheep when it didn't work. He says, if you're protecting against fanged predators, you need to have fanged predators. And I believe he's right. Yep, donkeys and llamas are fairly inexpensive. Nothing wrong with putting some in there, but I think that if you've got sheep, you need to have dogs. I'm convinced of it. He convinced me with his stories. He knows far more about it than I have. I've never raised a sheep. I have raised goats, and the only way we were ever able to keep those Nubian goats safe was by pinning them every single night. We put them in an enclosure every night. If we'd had dogs, trained guardian dogs, maybe we would have better luck with that. But we penned them every evening, and we let them out every morning. They were sort of free range, if you will. All right, guys, what else? Cameron is typing. Those trained guardian dogs are very expensive. Greg Judy gets $2,600 for a 1-year-old trained guardian dog. He gets premium prices, but he's probably one of the only people in the world that I would be 100% confident in if I bought a trained guardian dog from. So it's probably worth the money. Well, you can buy a lot of sheep for the cost of that dog. And he recommends no more than 100 animals per dog, 100 sheep per dog. So, you're talking about $26 a head for protection plus feed and other infrastructure. So that's a lot. That's expensive. At least up front, if that dog lives, those are big dogs. So they don't live 15 years. But you're still probably looking at somewhere around $3 or $4 a head over the lifetime of that dog for protection. And and these sheep aren't very expensive animals, so makes it tough. All right. What else? You have anything, Travis? Travis is typing away. Well, there you go. So I get so irritated. I get so irritated with these Second Amendment people. I even get irritated with the conservatives. I've talked in here about how to properly fight. How conservatives don't fight and how to properly act. But the truth of it is there's a limited amount of stuff we can do to resist that evil. There's a limited amount of things that we can do. First of all, it can't be resisted. It isn't an active thing. But there are proper ways to fight. There are proper, and it's more, like at Online Great Books. If I've got a disruptive leftist in there, I give them their money back and I take them out of the program. They get mad at me, but I don't care. We can't have that subversive, seductive, talk in there. We can't have it. I've been accused of trying to create an echo chamber. I promise you that's not true. I can get rid of postmodern people and relativists and have everybody else there still be believe in an objective truth and still not agree with any of them. I promise you. I promise you. Yeah. Yeah. Travis still is typing. The Meatsmith priorities are completely different. He teaches you how to raise and butcher animals in a way that works with the animal's uniqueness to improve health, meat quality, flavor, and I'd even say enjoyment and esthetician quality. Yeah, guys, listen, the Farmstead Meatsmith podcast is a delight. If anybody knows Brennan, I think that's his name, or his wife, make an introduction. I would love to have him on one of our shows, or maybe go on his show, because our projects, his project and my project, I think are actually identical. And he seems like quite a guy. All right. Well, it's about time for us to leave. We're going to go eat dinner with my brother-in-law and my sister-in-law, like we always do on this day. And hope you guys have a good time, or at least try to. This conversation started out slow, it picked up. I appreciate your questions and comments that end up being fuel for me. I appreciate it very much. All right, we'll talk to you guys soon. If you got some more questions or comments on these things that I've said, go ahead and put them here in the Telegram channel, and I will get it going. All righty.